the one thing I would say that, that's helped, helped me get to, where we are today, has been through mentorship. This very much is an apprentice, business, and to be able to seek out. And I kind of gave the advice earlier. There's just so many mentors, and I was saying the best thing I ever learned from Tom wasn't necessarily just the advice of going to Suburbia. It was the fact that I didn't want to hear it. Like I literally caught myself wanting to push back and debate it with this person that's had ridiculous success and is just so much smarter than me. And
pain hurts.
Thank God I just shut up. Right? I just shut up, and I let it mull over me. And it really did inform, and we obviously, it helped us. But so often, I'll have, people seek mentorship, from me. And I would say the majority completely listen, but there's actually a very big minority that really all they want is for someone to validate that they are already on the perfect plan and almost just nod.
Yeah. And
they're missing so much opportunity for growth. Right, they're really missing.
I just said pain hurts. I meant to say growth hurts.
Okay,
but so what are you trying to communicate? Get outside of your trajectory. Be open minded to what those who have gone through this don't necessarily do everything everybody says, but at least consider what are you trying to like? What's the key lesson?
I just you had mentioned, hey, I might ask you, who are some of your mentors, and it was ridiculous. I don't have to even think. They kind of spill over me, with each one of the lessons. I think about, I listened to Tom, but like Nick Marsh, which I think you've interviewed, the CEO of Chopped Salads.
Yep.
I mean, literally one of the smartest CEOs in the business. But in fact, if you look at why, I mean, he's been able to continue to still harness the two founders of Chopped, Tony and Colin. And continue to actually allow them to sprinkle some of that magic while building this unbelievable infrastructure around them. And now has just created what he calls Founders Table and saying, let me replicate, what I just did with Chopped.
Yeah.
And he's just plugged in Dos Toros.
Okay.
What you don't know is Mendo so plugged into Chopped in the early years, and they were basically our big brother restaurant in so many ways, because Nick was such an influential. He's our first board member, but the idea to replicate that, like founders, can come to a organization that wants to continue to harness what makes that concept great, but give them the infrastructure and the learnings, to be able to scale. And I think it's a big idea, but I look at Nick and going like, God, had we not had Nick,
he was a great guest. I'll be sure to link to that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And I always say it, and this is probably one of the biggest lessons I had, like the biggest, and it seems so simple that like, it's kind of silly when I say it out loud sometimes. Behind every great restaurant's a great person.
Yeah.
And they're the reason why their restaurant is great is because that person is great, and their restaurant is an extension of who they are.
And they built a great team.
And they built a great team, but
because the team craves to be, part of what that person.
But great people are attracted to other great people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's usually it's like moths being drawn to a light. You know what I'm saying? So you will never attract onto yourself the people you need unless you become a great person. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's something you can learn or not.
I think it is learned. Like if I was ever to give like some book recommendations, not to jump around, but
jump all over the place.
Someone that has been a mentor to me, one of the brightest people around, like how to build a team, recruit the right people, Alice Elliott. But she had her conference, her Breaking Bread conference, and God, I remember it so well because it was all the way in New York. And it was back in the early days. This might even be 10 years ago. And we could barely afford to get out to New York. So I remember it because it was a big like commitment.
I feel that.
That
I wouldn't
Alice,
be here if not for my friends in the aviation industry giving me buddy passes. So
okay,
I get it.
there you go. So Alice Elliott invited us to this like Breaking Bread conference. It was, which she still does. It's amazing. But she had this speaker, Jeff Colvin. He wrote this book called Talent is Overrated. It's a must read. It really brings up this process of deliberate practice, right? And it's practice with a plan. It's practice with enormous amount of feedback, and it's practice that's hard, right? Is this notion of deliberate practice?
Lean into it, right?
And when he's really saying with this idea of deliberate practice, is that greatness, like, what defines the greatest athletes or the greatest performers isn't that they were touched by God, right? Is that they've actually, it's learned. And if it's learned, then we can all learn it.
And that's the mission of this
Right?
podcast.
There you go.
Yes.
No, that's why I
Yes.
said you were doing the Lord's work. So,
Well, thank you.
And then I did want to mention there's like a few other, like when I think through my mentors, and hopefully this isn't just like giving them props, but it's also helping the listener understand like what I've pulled away. We got an opportunity to learn from Cheesecake Factory, and one of the people that like jumped out was probably another professor in the industry is this gentleman Donald Moore. Truly, he's chief culinary officer, and watching his innovation process and watching their team spend as much time on innovating existing items that were already like delicious and craveable and making them more craveable, and actually giving that as much time as creating new items, gave us a new regiment at Mendo. It actually changed Mendo, 3 or 4 years ago.
Was this
We
the
went deep.
60-40 rule? Is that what you're with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Was that in the last one?
I think so. But the
good.
mentality that
So you asked a lot.
60% of our 60% of our energy in the as far as like the back of house with
Yes.
is going into doing what we do even better, and
That's
40%
right.
is R&D. Yeah.
Yeah. That
came from
totally
Apple,
came
right?
from well, I mean, it really came from Donald
Oh,
Moore.
okay,
yeah,
okay.
it came from Cheesecake.